in terms of his legal challenges, because those are continuing, we've had a few updates on that this morning. In Pennsylvania, there had been a judge who ruled that they would be able to have Trump campaign observers in closer quarters with the vote count. That was almost immediately overturned by another judge right after Trump and his team had been claiming victory in that. You also have in Georgia, there had been an attempt to claim that one of the counties in Georgia had been counting votes that were cast after the cutoff point. A judge threw that out. But of course, that's not final. I mean, for any one of these, Malika, presumably a higher court could again reverse it, even up to and including the Supreme Court, which in the run up to the election had, it was mixed messages, but they had seemed to be willing to, in some cases, make changes that would cut some votes from consideration.
Yeah, I mean, and that would completely undermine his whole message about stopping the count. So are we stopping the count or are we starting it? Are we reviewing the count or not? So, I think that they're just trying to fight for and scramble for power however it comes. Right now, Joe Biden is at 264 electoral votes without even looking at what may be some of the more contentious states, without even having to touch Georgia. So I think once it's all said and done, Joe Biden is probably going to win. He's going to keep fighting the same way that he sues, everyone that he sued in the past. So I don't really, I'm not that concerned about Donald Trump, other than the fact that it's going to create headlines and maybe be a distraction in terms of getting at the real policies that people are going to be expecting out of a Joe Biden administration.
Exactly, and that those same people will probably end up being incredibly frustrated with Joe Biden's inability to deliver on it, whether he ends up getting the majority in the Senate or not, which is something we're gonna be talking about a little bit later on. But in terms of those legal challenges, obviously, for Joe Biden, in terms of taking the presidency, 270 is as good as 400, but with both the possibility of continued legal challenges and the possibility of faithless electors, because our democracy is literally insane, getting Georgia, getting Pennsylvania would certainly be nice. And the weird thing with Trump is that he always does this thing where he undercuts his legal challenges that are ongoing. Like he directly argues against the case that his lawyers are making. And we have an example of that from yesterday. Oh no, actually, well, we have two really, but we have one more recent one where he tweeted earlier, "Our lawyers have asked for meaningful access, but what good does that do? The damage has already been done to the integrity of our system and to the presidential election itself. This is what should be discussed." So no, but they're asking for that meaningful access in Pennsylvania this morning, and he's saying, but who cares? And look, I would argue the same thing. Look, if both campaigns want to watch the count, I guess that's a thing that can happen. It's unlikely to actually change the outcome. But what I'm getting from him is that I think he is not just retreating from the idea that he can win it outright from the votes. That seems to be an acknowledgement that he doesn't think he can win it based on the challenges they have in court right now. And so I don't know what if you were to retreat from that, I don't know what's left. I don't know if it's, he knows he's gonna lose, but he wants to maintain plausible deniability about how awesome he is so that his base will follow him to whatever the next step is. Or if this is, we're not gonna win just by having people watch the vote. We need the Supreme Court to invalidate, 1 million votes in Pennsylvania or something like that. I don't know. It's a weird thing to do while your lawyers are pleading the case for you to undercut their core argument.
Yeah, and I'm curious as to how serious he really even is about having lawyers involved. It seems to me, because just based on Donald Trump's history, that this is like probably as much as a dog whistle to incite exactly what we're seeing right now in terms of riling up his base to keep harassing the election officials in Nevada and Pennsylvania and Georgia and elsewhere. Because if he's really concerned about having meaningful access, like it seems bizarre that he would then throw up his hand and say, well, maybe not. When you have journalists, the New York Times was in Wisconsin. I mean, you see reporters inside of these buildings already watching over the people who are making these counts. So what exactly is the barrier here? So I'm not exactly sure that this is a complete, that Donald Trump is really trying to frame a legitimate argument that's actually logical, as opposed to just riling up his base with baseless assumptions in order to do what he's always done, which is to create chaos.
Exactly. Look, I agree with you about the process that's ongoing, but of course, from the point of view of his base, which I guess is 30 to 44% of the country, those reporters being there, that makes it worse. Reporters like from the New York Times, like you're fake news, according to them. They believe some rando commentator on Breitbart, to them, has more credibility. Don Jr. has more credibility than someone like you who works for The Guardian. It's crazy pants, but that's what they believe. And we have to remember, all of us, that as this goes forward, everybody is clicking constantly to get new news, but they're not clicking on the same places. Like, I might be looking to see what the official count is for Nevada and Georgia. Others are looking at 4chan, or they're looking at Drudge, or they're looking at some Discord, or they're looking at that rapidly expanding Stop the Count Facebook page. And so no matter what ends up actually happening with the final count in the Electoral College, you're gonna have a significant portion of the population that doesn't necessarily believe that it's legitimate, which to me going forward is a little bit scary. Regardless of what happens with Trump, his base is not going to accept that he lost if he in fact does actually lose, which is not guaranteed, but seems pretty likely at this point.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. That's absolutely correct. That's what we're probably going to see. I mean, again, they had this sort of victim complex. Even when Donald Trump did win, you saw a continuous rise in like these white nationalist far right militias that were attacking people. You saw a rise in sort of conspiracy theories where like folks like Cesar Sayoc who were trying to take Democratic officials out. And again, well, not again, but I haven't mentioned this, but I'm not aligned with either party. This is not to defend Democrats in any way whatsoever. But we are seeing more violence coming from the far right, even when they are in positions of authority, even when they have won. So we are definitely going to see that post-Trump if that is what's going to happen.
That is my fear.